It's alive.
I just was like trying to get my head at the same angle as you.
Okay. So my other fun story is I decided, have you heard about the Meadery? Drekar Meadery, I think I'm saying that right, is a place that opened up like a month before lockdown started. And I had been wanting to go and not being able to go, and 2 years pass or whatever, however long it's been.
Basically 2 years.
Yeah. And yesterday at random, again on social media, I was informed that they were having a Tolkien takeover of the Meadery. And I was like, hang out with Tolkien heads and go to the Meadery I've been wanting to go to forever. Yeah. So I did. It did get a little crowded, but everyone I talked to had definitely been vaccinated, and yeah, the likelihood of transmission was rather slim. I kept my eye on that, but everyone was so sweet, and everyone showed up in costume, and so I was surrounded by elves drinking mead and talking stories, and everyone had Tolkien tattoos and steins and
Nice.
at one point someone came in with like a mandolin, and their friend had a penny whistle, and they were playing in the middle of the room, and the room is tiny. It was little hole in the wall place. And the mead did give me a little bit of a tummy ache. I think my gut just doesn't like yeast.
Mm.
But it was worth it because it was lavender lemon mead, and it was so good.
Ooh, that does sound good.
And after chit-chatting with a group of people, I saw a totally different group of people opening up the Lord of the Rings Trivial Pursuit game and going, "How do we play this?" And I was like, "Hey, may I join
Hello.
you?"
Did someone... I've played it. No one will play with me except my sibling.
And my 10-year-old son who likes to win.
Yes.
Yeah. It was delightful. It was just the most wonderful time. And then I was like, crap, I have to go. I need to cook dinner. And a couple, like most of the people were new to me, but there was a lovely couple that I see at every con. And Anita has done me favors in the past that were like, damn it. And I was like, ride home. And they were like, of course. So yeah, sweetest people in the world. And I got to see them because I never do outside of cons, right? Like it's just, which means there's a bunch of people I haven't seen in about 2 years that I didn't realize I need like regular doses of, or I get sad.
I was at physical therapy last week, I think, and doing so. My physical therapy currently involves the therapist tying an elastic band around my ankles, and then I have to crab walk down to the end of the room and back.
I've seen that exercise done, but the way you describe it sounds much more interesting. Like you have to have your arms. I'm like,
I at one point I did go, I'm like Zoidberg. So I am wearing my anthropomorphic sushi mask.
Good.
With my blue hair, making Zoidberg jokes, crab walking down to the end of the room, and a dude working on his hand or something is like, do I know you from a con? I was like, probably.
I am con people. I advertise.
I think I was wearing my trans pride shirt too. Like, I was very con people.
Oh, good stuff. I had one more really good story about. Well, I did get. I didn't get a write up done yesterday. I did the day before, but I missed the day before that, and I've decided to just not not fuss if I miss a day, because fussing about missing a day takes energy that I could put into not missing another day, which is a lesson 40 years in the learning right there.
It takes how long it takes.
And I'm getting into the end of the Lanthanides where things get really repetitive, like even metaphorically repetitive, where I'm like, the lesson of this card is the lesson of the card two numbers ago. Same lesson. Do that. Whatever I told you to do then, do that again.
I mean,
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, see Erbium. Whose turn is it to read?
It's mine.
Okay.
What was I going to say? Oh, so I think I told you I've been doing National Clean Your House Month. Did I tell you this?
Ooh. Yes, but I haven't heard how it's been going.
It's been going quite well. That's why I have shelves. But also, I have been slowly cleaning my car, and I have a car vacuum. The laptop is propped up on it right now. So when I'm done, I'm going to vacuum my car.
Oh my God. Like a grown-up.
Let's not get carried away.
Okay.
But I'm quite excited about it.
That is very exciting. A long time ago, Jason put fun little like LED lights under the seats, and we hardly ever see them because we're all such slobs that there's just trash piled up against his cool little car things. And then every so often it all gets cleaned, and I'm like, by him, not gets cleaned. He cleans it. I'm not taking credit, but I get in the car and I'm like, wow, someone really cares about this car. We should show more often. We should stop dumping our trash in here.
I'm gonna get like a trash bag, that like one of those ones that hangs off the seat, because then I could put trash someplace that's not like on the seat. Yeah, exactly. And I have learned from, speaking of lessons multiple decades in the making, that if you just put a container underneath where you put the pile of stuff, then it's stuff in a container and it's not a mess.
Oh my God.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic.
No, not really. That's a little. I don't know. Schrodinger's sarcasm.
Well, I'm glad neither of us knew. I was like, I usually can read you better than that. Oh no, you didn't know either.
The art cave is so destroyed and it needs to be cleaned. Everything is everywhere. And I'm like, ugh.
So what's been working for me is that every time I'm in the place that needs to be cleaned, in this case, my car, I take one thing out of it. It can be more than one, but it's at least one. And
the art cave just needs a good old-fashioned reorg. Things aren't going where they belong because a lot of these things don't belong anywhere. They are things that have turned up since the last time I did this. And there's plenty of space for everything, but it's stuff like the old sheer curtains from the living room. Plenty of good fabric in there, but the dogs have shredded the bottom part, so we don't want it in the living room. It looks freaking tatty. And they're sheer, so I can't repair them. So now I've got all this sheer fabric. Well, I need to wrap it on a board and stick it in with my other fabrics. And it's just stuff I haven't done yet, you know?
Mm-hmm. And if you like, I have discovered the concept of incremental progress where you do one thing that you haven't done, and then the next day you do another thing you haven't done, and you never do a marathon, but somehow things happen.
That does help.
You may be familiar with this idea. I was not.
It's how I get it's how we don't live in a cesspool, because there's always a cup to pick up or whatnot. It's so freaking funny. Did I tell you about the dear old man who was giving me advice unnecessarily?
This sounds vaguely familiar.
was writing paragraph. Like I said, yeah,
Oh, on your Tolkien posts, yeah.
or
Or
my
not Tolkien
Discord
posts,
posts,
Disctober posts, yeah.
Disctober posts. I was like, who is this person? And I went to his page and found out it was a him, at least, because he has an androgynous name. And I was like, okay, so it's some guy. Am I being mansplained out? Well, like, it all feels well intentioned, so I don't want to be like, you don't know me. And incremental progress was one of his pieces of advice too. He just didn't put it quite so succinctly. It was, and eventually when I was like, "Are you?" Because by the time he was giving me art advice, I was like, "You're an artist too?" And he was like, "Well, I used to be, but with this brain tumor, I'm going blind, and I've had a good run. But I've got my true love and I've got my nice home, but I can't see and my hands are shaky." And I was like, thank you for all the lovely advice. I will never ever tell you to buzz off, because that would just be mean. Because if advice is what you're doing now, instead of all the things you can't do anymore, then you're doing better than I would.
Fair enough.
Right? Yeah. Really glad I didn't snap.
Yeah.
Although I've talked to people who are like, I would have snapped anyway. Well, you're not me.
Yeah. It's not necessary. You know you, and he doesn't know you, but he was trying to be nice, and that's fine.
Right? Yeah. And it's a present. Advice is a present that you're giving someone if they are willing to take it that way.
Like socks.
I haven't looked at this in 2 weeks, and now all I see is a glowing vagina in the trees.
Did we? I feel like we discussed that at the time as well.
It's entirely possible. Or you might have thought it real loud.
I think it was both. I think you mentioned Georgia O'Keeffe at some point. Because I was like, I wasn't going to say it.
It's okay. I'm actually going to steer away from the cervix here and get it a little more portal of genericness looking. The goal. Today we will go for a generic portal. Gender neutral portal.
I just feel like portal of genericness is a really interesting euphemism.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
All right. Let's find where we were. Oh, do.
Where were we? I don't recall.
Oh, Éowyn had vanished into the night after hitting on Aragorn, kind of.
Because they love you.
Awkward. And then she runs away into the night, which, frankly, the fact that she has the ability to do that, I have had several past moments where I was like, boy, I wish I could just vanish into the night, and the other person I was talking to would go be, killed by ghosts.
No, it's gonna be my new headcanon that she gets right out of earshot and trips over a rock and falls flat on her face like any of us would if we had approached our crush and been rebuffed.
Mm-hmm.
Vanish.
And then just sort of sit there and start crying.
Yep.
Oh,
Salty
man.
in the grass. Yeah, been there, Éowyn. I love you.
Been there. It might be long enough that this story will be funny now. I have not told you this one in the past, but one time I went over to hang out with a crush, and I thought things were going to go well, and they did not go well. But because I had thought things were going to go well, I had told my roommates I wasn't going to be home. So that I got home after being rejected, and they had put the chain on the door.
Oh, no.
And it was like 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, no. Oh, honey.
Yeah, I just went to open the door and it went chunk, and I was like, well, that might as well happen.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Anyway, so that happens to Eowyn, but with a rock.
Yeah.
Ahem. When the light of day was come into the sky, but the sun was not yet risen above the high ridges in the east, Aragorn made ready to depart. His company was all mounted, and he was about to leap into the saddle, when the Lady Eowyn came to bid them farewell. She had a big bruise on her face, but nobody said anything.
Nobody mentioned that. They were too gentlemanly.
She was clad as a rider, and girt with a sword. In her hand she bore a cup, and she set it to her lips and drank a little, wishing them good speed. And then she gave the cup to Aragorn, and he drank, which, see, in the time of Corona seems very unsanitary.
Very unsanitary.
And he said, "Farewell, Lady of Rohan. I drink to the fortunes of your house, and of you, and of all your people. Say to your brother, beyond the shadows we may meet again." Then it seemed to Gimli and Legolas, who were nearby, that she wept, and in one so stern and proud that seemed the more grievous. But she said, "Aragorn, wilt thou go?"
Yeah.
"I will," he said. "Then wilt thou not let me ride with thy company, as I have asked?" "I will not, lady," he said, "for that I could not grant without leave of the king and of your brother, and they will not return until tomorrow."
Patriarchy.
Well, see, that was my first thought, and then I remembered that she is running the entire camp right now. Like, it's less patriarchy and more like you can't leave your job without your boss's permission.
True. She has a point too, though. The whole, so I'm allowed to like wipe runny noses until y'all are dead, and then I'm allowed to die.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, she has a point.
Yeah.
They both have points. It's sort of the
do.
tragedy of this whole interaction is like
It is. Yeah. Like, damn it. All right, go ahead.
Anyway, let's see. "For that I could not grant without leave of the king and of your brother. And they will not return until tomorrow. But I count now every hour, indeed every minute. Farewell."
Talk.
Then she fell on her knees, saying, "I beg thee." "Nay, lady," he said, and taking her by the hand, he raised her. Then he kissed her hand and sprang into the saddle and rode away, and did not look back. But only those only those who knew him well and were near to him saw the pain that he bore. But like in a manly and stoic way.
Yes.
Wah.
Like when Bugs Bunny wants to cry, like. Yes, just like that.
Yes. But Eowyn stood still as a figure carven in stone, her hands clenched at her sides, and she watched them until they passed into the shadows under the black Dwimmerberg, the haunted mansion. Sorry, haunted mountain. Different thing.
The what?
My brain just went straight to like carnival rides. I don't know.
Disney have bought you. How long?
Ever since I drew that Mickey Mouse shaped Barad-dûr.
What was the promised price? When all the men were dead, you were to take your share of the treasure.
No, they just said they wouldn't sue me. Anyway, back to the Dwimmerberg, which is not a Disney property.
Indeed. Yet.
The haunted mountain, in which was the door of the dead. Ooh, you know what would be a cool Halloween decoration? Is to get those like etchings from around the door of the dead and put them around your front door.
Oh, that'd be so nerdtastic.
Remind me about that next year. I want to do that. When they were lost to view, she turned, stumbling as one that is blind, and fell on her face again.
Again. Aww.
And went back to her lodging. But none of her folk saw this parting, for they hid themselves in fear and would not come forth until the day was up and the reckless strangers were gone. And some said, they are elvish wights. Let them go where they belong, into the dark places, and never return. The times are evil enough. I don't know what accent that was, by the way.
Kind of southern, actually.
Yeah,
They're evil enough.
not intentionally. I was trying for Scottish, but I ended up Scottish by way of Missouri.
Don't need those damn Gondorians.
You said I wasn't allowed to make the Rohirrim southern.
I didn't understand how perfect that would be when I said that.
You underestimated my genius.
I did. I never will again.
Always underestimated. The light was still gray as they rode, for the sun had not climbed over the black ridges of the haunted mountain before them. A dread fell on them even as they passed between the lines of ancient stones, and so came to the Dimhold. There, under the gloom of black trees that not even Legolas could long endure, they found a hollow place opening at the mountain's root, and right in their path stood a single mighty stone like a finger of doom. Doom!
Doom! There we go. Doom.
This is not a very, doomy gesture. Doom! Tickle, tickle, tickle!
Wait. A finger of doom.
Doom.
The Dwimmerberg is flipping us off. Doom. Abby interrupted math today to ask me why he couldn't move these two fingers independently.
Well, that's a good question, actually.
It is, yeah. I told it. Yeah, it was. I didn't tell him to shut up. I went ahead and answered.
I mean, it's like you can, but you have to quite concentrate on it.
And when you're super young, like he is, you really can't.
That's true.
Yeah, it takes some practice.
Hmm.
But yeah. Mother Nature decided we didn't need to use these two fingers independent of each other, so she just wired them the same.
Well, and frankly, she was right. I mean, what am I going to need to do with my ring finger that my pinky can't tag along for?
Well, leave a comment if you know.
Yeah, I feel like that opens up too many conversations that I don't want to have with the internet.
Don't leave a comment, internet. Don't do it.
Please refrain from commenting as you have been for the last 2 years.
Just think about it really loud.
Yeah, that'll be plenty.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anyway, so they got the middle finger from the Dimhold.
Yeah, Dimhold flipped him off. Keep going.
My blood runs chill, said Gimli. But the others were silent, and his voice fell dead on the dank fir needles at his feet.
That's fucking rude.
Right?
Not even a me too.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm super scared. Not gonna respond to that. Hey.
At least a man enough to admit it.
Right?
Fucking Rangers.
What the hell is up with that?
Stoic.
The horses would not pass the threatening stone until the riders dismounted and led them about. And so they came at last deep into the glen, and there stood a sheer wall of rock, and in the wall the dark door gaped before them like the mouth of night. Signs and figures were carved above its wide arch, too dim to read, and fear flowed from it like a gray vapor. The company halted, and there was not a heart among them that did not quail, unless it were the heart of Legolas of the Elves, for whom the ghosts of men have no terror. Everybody else is absolutely petrified with fear, and Legolas is just like, couldn't be me.
Yep. Sucks to be you.
That's rough, buddy.
Yeah. So dead things, eh? Can we eat them?
I don't think elves eat dead humans.
No, I mean ghosts. Like he has zero experience of them. Like, are they bigger than a toaster? Can they be served up on rye?
Are they gooey or more of a crumbly texture?
Right? Oh wait, I'm thinking of cheese, aren't I? Dead spirits cheese. You know what?
Spirits are the ones that get you
cheese either, because you may have noticed elves don't keep cows.
Mm-hmm.
They might have devised vegan cheese.
Yeah, I read a sci-fi novel where it was actually quite a delightful one, but all of the characters were various species of alien that were like trapped together in a little, basically a interstellar truck stop. And one of the things they bonded over was that one of them had a human boyfriend and was explaining to the others what cheese is, and all of the others were like, "They do what?"
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And then she explains that it's not made from human milk, and then they're all really disgusted.
Right? Like, why are you eating other species lactation? What is wrong with you?
Yep. The book, by the way, is called... Shit, I don't remember.
That's an interesting title.
The Galaxy and the Ground Below is what it's called.
Oh.
It's really good. I recommend it.
Cool.
All right. This is an evil door, said Halperad, and my death lies beyond it. I will dare to pass it nonetheless, but no horse will enter. But we must go in, and therefore the horses must go too, said Aragorn. For if ever we come through this darkness, many leagues lie beyond, and every hour that is lost there will bring the triumph of Sauron nearer. Follow me. Then Aragorn led the way, and such was the strength of his will in that hour that all the Dunedain and their horses followed him. And indeed, the love that the horses of the Rangers bore for their riders was so great that they were willing to face even the terror of the door, if their masters' hearts were steady as they walked beside them. But Arod, the horse of Rohan, refused the way. He stood sweating and trembling in a fear that was grievous to see. Then Legolas laid his hands on his eyes and sang some words that went soft in the gloom, until he suffered himself to be led, and Legolas passed in. And there stood Gimli the dwarf, left all alone. They didn't even wait for him. What dicks?
Right.
His knees shook, and he was wroth with himself. Here is a thing unheard of, he said. An elf will go underground, and a dwarf dare not. With that, he plunged in. But it seemed to him that he dragged his feet like lead over the threshold, and at once a blindness came upon him, even upon Gimli Gloin's son, who had walked unafraid in many deep places of the world. Aragorn had brought torches from Dunharrow, and now he went ahead bearing one aloft, and Elladan with another went at the rear, and Gimli, stumbling behind, strove to overtake him. He could see nothing but the dim flame of the torches, but if the company halted, there seemed an endless whisper of voices all about him, a murmur of words in no tongue that he had ever heard before. Nothing assailed the company or withstood their passage. I think my Chinese food is lost.
Oh no.
It says that the delivery driver is going back to the restaurant.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
So I don't know what that's about, but we won't have to pause reading.
I'm sorry about your food, though.
It's okay. I'm not starving. I kind of ordered it in advance thinking that it would come after we were done. I just didn't feel like cooking.
Check.
Anyway, nothing assailed the company nor withstood their passage, and yet steadily fear grew on the dwarf as he went on, most of all because he knew now that there could be no turning back. All the paths behind were thronged by an unseen host that followed in the dark. So time unreckoned passed, until Gimli saw a sight that he was ever afterwards loath to recall. The road was wide as far as he could judge, but now the company came suddenly into a great empty space, and there were no longer any walls upon either side. The dread was so heavy on him that he could hardly walk. Away to the left, something glittered in the gloom as Aragorn's torch grew near. Then Aragorn halted and went to look at what it might be. Which is like a classic horror movie thing to do.
Don't go in there!
Which Gimli immediately says, "Does he feel no fear?" muttered the dwarf. In any other cave, Gimli Gloin's son would have been the first to run to the gleam of gold. But not here. Let it lie. Nonetheless, he drew near and saw Aragorn kneeling, while Elladan held aloft both torches. Before him were the bones of a mighty man. What a man, what a man, what a man, what a mighty, mighty man, what a mighty dead man.
Yes, he is.
He had been clad in mail, and still his harness lay there whole, for the cavern's air was as dry as dust, and his hauberk was gilded. His belt was of golden garnets, and rich with gold was the helm upon his bony head, face downward on the floor. He had fallen near the far wall of the cave, as now could be seen, and before him stood a stony door closed fast. His finger bones were still clawing at the cracks. A notched and broken sword lay by him, as if he had hewn at the rock in his last despair. Aragorn did not touch him, but after gazing silently for a while, he rose and sighed. "Hither shall the flowers of Silmarillion never come unto world's end," he murmured. "9 mounds and 7 there are now, green with grass, and through all the long years he has lain at the door that he could not unlock. Whither does it lead? Why would he pass? None shall ever know. For that is not my errand," he cried, turning back and speaking to the whispering darkness behind. "Keep your hoards and your secrets hidden in the accursed years. Speed only we ask. Let us pass, and then come. I summon you to the stone of Erech." Give me 1 second. I want to check on something real quick.
No problem. Did they leave the food at the door? Because that has been known to happen. We have ordered food and had it left on the porch without anybody telling us more than once. Hello?
Yep, I just wanted to check my phone and see if they had texted me, like, why the heck he went back to the restaurant, but they didn't. They just said it's delayed.
Did you? Oh, okay. I was going to say, did you check your porch in case he just left the food and ran?
No, he hasn't. Like, there's a little tracker on the car. He hasn't been near my house yet.
Oh, okay.
I actually asked them to leave the food and run. Contactless delivery, please.
Nice.
It looks a lot less like a vagina now.
Yay! More
Yay!
food, depending on the mood.
There was no answer, unless it were an utter silence, more dreadful than the whispers before. And then a chill blast came in which the torches flickered and went out, and could not be rekindled. Of the time that followed, 1 hour or many, Gimli remembered little. The others pressed on, but he was ever hindmost, pursued by a groping horror that seemed always just about to seize him.
Ugh.
And a rumor came
been
after
there,
him.
dude.
Yeah, right.
You're a woman who's ever been to a bar. You know what it's like to have the groping horror behind you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And a rumor came after him like the shadow sound of many feet. He stumbled on until he was crawling like a beast on the ground and felt that he could endure no more. He must either find an ending and escape, or run back in madness to meet the following fear. Suddenly he heard the tinkle of water, a sound hard and clear as a stone falling into a dream of dark shadow. Light grew, and lo, the company passed through another gateway, high-arched and broad, and a rill ran out beside them, and beyond, going steeply down, was a road between sheer cliffs, knife-edged against the sky far above. So deep and narrow was that chasm that the sky was dark, and in it small stars glinted. Yet as Gimli after learned, it was still 2 hours ere sunset of the day on which they had set out from Dunharrow, though for all that he could then tell, it might have been twilight in some later year, or in some other world. It's such an interesting mental image. Like, it's such a narrow canyon that you can see the stars before sunset because the sun's that far out of range.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've often wondered if it works that way.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I know that you can, if you know what you're doing, well, I know through Nation that you can view planets during daylight, like the universe doesn't turn off.
Well, yeah.
But
I would think that in the real world, I don't know the rules of Middle-earth in this respect, but in the real world, there would be enough sunlight reflecting off the atmosphere that you would be able to see that the sky wasn't dark, even if you couldn't see the sun.
Right.
You know?
And maybe I don't know. It's just a good image, though. Like,
It
I'm
is a
not
good
going to
image.
argue with it. I would love to know the facts of it, but it's not going to take anything away from the thought of a chasm so deep. You can see the stars in daylight.
Right? Yeah, no, totally. The company now mounted again, and Gimli returned to Legolas. They rode in file, and evening came on in a deep blue dusk, and still fear pursued them. Legolas, turning to speak to Gimli, looked back, and the dwarf saw before his face the glitter in the elf's bright eyes. Behind them rode Elladan, last of the company, but not the last of those that took the downward road. The dead are following, said Legolas. I see shapes of men and of horses, and pale banners like shreds of cloud, and spears like winter thickets on a misty night. The dead are following. Yes, the dead ride behind. They have been summoned, said Elladan. The company came at last out of the ravine.
I know, Elladan, I was there.
Right? Like, we were all there, buddy.
Trying to be extra poetical. Don't need to do that for our sake, dude. Do you think someone's recording this?
Right. The company came at last out of the ravine as suddenly as if they had issued from a crack in the wall. And there lay the uplands of a great vale before them, and the stream beside them went down with a cold voice over many falls. Where in Middle-earth are we? Said Gimli, and Elladan answered, this guy again. We have descended from the uprising of the Morthond, the long chill river that flows at last to the sea that washes the walls of Dol Amroth. You will not need to ask hereafter how comes its name. Blackroot, men call it. The Morthond Vale made a great bay that beat up against the sheer southern faces of the mountains. Its steep slopes were grass-grown, but all was gray in that hour, for the sun had gone, and far below lights twinkled in the homes of men. The vale was rich, and many folk dwelt there. Then, without turning, Aragorn cried aloud so that all could hear. Friends, forget your weariness. Ride now, ride. We must come to the Stone of Era ere this day passes, and long still is the way. So without looking... Huh?
Era.
Right, I still...
The Stone of...
The Stone of...
You know, because it's where the dead keep their trysts, so it makes you living people go ah.
So without looking back, they rode the mountain fields until they came to a bridge over the growing torrent and found a road that went down into the land. Lights went out in house and hamlet as they came, and doors were shut, and folk that were afield cried in terror and ran wild like hunted deer. Ever there rose the same cry in the gathering night. The King of the Dead! The King of the Dead has come upon us! Bells were ringing far below, and all men fled before the face of Aragorn. But the grey company in their haste rode like hunters, until their horses were stumbling with weariness. And thus, just ere midnight, and in a darkness as black as the cavern in the mountains, they came at last to the hill of Era. Long had the terror of the dead lain upon that hill, and upon the empty fields about it. For upon the top stood a black stone, round as a great globe, the height of a man, though its half was buried in the ground. Unearthly it looked, as though it had fallen from the sky, as some believed. But those who remembered still the lore of Westerness told that it had been brought out of the ruin of Numenor and set there by Isildur at his landing. None of the people of the valley dared to approach it, nor would they dwell near, for they said it was a trysting place of the Shadow Men. Oh, you weren't kidding about that. I forgot that was actually in the book. And there they would gather in times of fear, thronging round the stone and whispering. To that stone the company came and halted in the dead of night. Then Elrohir gave to Aragorn a silver horn, and he blew upon it. And it seemed to those that stood near that they heard a sound of answering horns, as if it was an echo in deep caves far away. No other sound they heard, and yet they were aware of a great host gathered all about the hill on which they stood, and a chill wind like the breath of ghosts came down from the mountains. But Aragorn dismounted, and standing by the stone, he cried in a great voice, Oath-breakers, why have ye come? And a voice was heard out of the night that answered him, as if from far away. To fulfill our oath and have peace. Then Aragorn said, The hour is come at last. Now I go to Pelargir upon Anduin, and ye shall come after me. When all this land is clean of the servants of Sauron, I will hold the oath fulfilled, and ye shall have peace and depart forever. For I am Elisar, Isildur's heir of Gondor. And with that he bade Halbarad unfurl the great standard which he had brought, and behold, it was black. And if there was any device upon it, it was hidden in the darkness. And behold, you couldn't tell what the fuck it said.
Behold! We don't know! It is the most Mel Brooksian moment in the entire trilogy. Like, oh! Wait for morning.
It's kind of dark out. It's fine.
Yeah. Anybody got a flashlight? No? Okay.
Then there was silence. Disappointed silence.
The dead are like, what is it? Is there something out there? Is he a pirate?
What are we supposed to be saying? Is this? Should we clap?
I don't know. Is he the right guy? He doesn't have enough titles.
But he has a flag.
He has a flag.
Then there was
this country.
And not a whisper nor a sigh was heard again all the long night. The company camped beside the stone, but they slept little because of the dread of the shadows that hedged them round. But when the dawn came, cold and pale, Aragorn rose at once, and he led the company forth upon the journey of greatest haste and weariness that any among them had known, save he alone, and only his will held them to go on. No other mortal men could have endured it, none but the Dunedain of the north, and with them Gimli the dwarf and Legolas of the elves. They passed Tarlang's neck and came into Lamadan, and the shadow host pressed behind, and fear went on before them, until they came to Calimbel upon Ciril, and the sun went down like blood behind Pinath Gelin away on the west behind them. The township and the fords of Ciril they found deserted, for many men had gone away to war, and all that were left fled to the hills at the rumor of the coming of the king of the dead. But the next day there came no dawn, and the grey company passed on into the darkness of the storm of Mordor, and were lost to mortal sight. But the dead followed them.
Woo!
I feel like that's such a good stopping place that we kind of have to.
Right, it totally is. All right, a little less vaginal.
Mm-hmm.
Still kinda. It's just this curve is just a good curve. It's hard to resist. So I hear.
I think making it more angular does help, though.
Okay.
Dirty jokes aside, it helped a lot, and I really like the orange up at the top. Also, it kind of there's a nice contrast and flow.
Yay.
Because before it was very white vagina and then some trees, and now it's some things are happening.
Stuff. Yeah. Just a doodle. Because I can't really get any details or make plans with this. I think these are a sort of oil pastel.
They look oil pastelish in how they lay down.
Gel sticks is what they're called, but they were a present, and since I can't really use them in my other stuff, also half of them are metallic, so I get this.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's pretty,
right? I like that. That's cool. I wish the white was metallic, but it sort of works.
I kind of like it that way because then the light from the white is what lights up on the trees.
Yes, that's totally what I was going for.
Super intentional.
Here. Yeah. I actually was, because I usually don't do really well with light. Light is not what my art is known for. I'm not one of the Thomas Kincaid type of
I was just thinking, should I mention Thomas Kincaid? Is that insulting? I don't know.
See, I know that he's like held as super basic bitch art these days, but he's actually good. So
It's
call it
really
out.
pretty.
They're really pretty and they're really like nice. They're just good. Like I don't know why he is anathema.
I think a lot of people have fallen into the gritty is good thing. And
Right.
so like sincerity is a real gets a lot of hate right now. And so someone who's just like, look, here's a pretty house with a garden and light coming out of the windows. Wouldn't you like to walk up that path? Is like, oh, well, there's no art to that. It's like,
actually, there totally is. I think we could all use a little more escapism right now. In the Tolkien sense, in the literal sense.
Yeah. Well, and like, I just don't see anything wrong with being like, hey, this is a nice thing and it's pretty and I like it.
Right?
Doesn't have to
and he's done hundreds of them, so you can like pick your ideal cottage with adorable garden and beautiful view, and
right?
What the fuck is wrong with that? Ugh, yeah. I like sincerity. Anyway, anyway,
I got all excited that my hair still looks as curly, even though it's dry, and then I touched it and it's not dry at all. So
at least that means it's not making you cold while you
well,
sit
no,
there.
It's warm in my house.
Yeah.
I have the heater at a comfortable temperature for me, which would be like probably too hot for most of the rest of humanity.
But it's your house.
Best thing about living alone, I'm never too cold.
If I insist, we can get it up to 70 in here, but it costs a lot because it's a huge house.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is I have like a tiny apartment. Hey, that looks really goopy.
It's a bit oily. Slippery is what I was going to say, but that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Oh, funny story, since I've got 2 minutes. Jason and I built the front brick bed.
I recall.
We got extra bricks. They were about half an inch too tall, but in all other respects, they were the right size. So we were like, well, we'll just make sure that the mortar beds are thick enough that we could put like make half of them this too tall one, and then it was going to even out. Well, it looks like a professional built it 80 years ago or like amateurs built it last week, because it's really wonky despite all our best efforts. Like we were going for a level 4 difficulty and we're like level 0.2 of the skill. But one of the things that kept happening when I was laying bricks was I was getting the mortar everywhere and I was just scooping it up with my hands. And for a while I was trying gloves, but they broke. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to like make the joints with my fingers and lean into this. Well, my hands were super dry, like mummy dry for about 2 days. It got so smooth. The mortar did dermabrasion. They were like a baby's bottom all up in here. Lucky.
Ish.
For 2 days though, I could squirt lotion on my hand and watch it go. It's very dry. Yeah, and then when you stretch your hands, you can feel all the skin along here, like.
Oh, I hate that feeling so much. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard.
Right, but yeah, now, especially with the oil on, but even in general, they're just smoother than they've been in many a year.
Congratulations. I'm also pleased to report that I just got a text that my food has been delivered, so that timing is ideal.
Perfect.
I'm gonna go eat some mushroom greens in black bean sauce.
Ooh.
Sorry, not mushroom greens, mustard greens. Mustard greens and mushrooms in black bean sauce.
I heard mustard greens rather than mushroom greens. That's funny.
Maybe I said it right?
No, I think you didn't, but my brain translated. Otherwise, I would have been like, there's no such thing as mushroom greens. What are you speaking of?
I'll let you know how it is.
Please do. And I love you.
I love you too.
Cuidado.
Yamas.
Till next week.
Mm-hmm.